Good afternoon everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I noticed there's a couple of ripe things in my veggie garden that I can harvest today. So I wanted to show you what I'm able to harvest from the small container garden on a weekly basis. But as most of you guys know, my garden is in the shade for most of the day. So that harvest from a shady garden is always gonna be smaller than I harvest from a sunny garden, because most fruits and vegetables need at least 6 hours of direct sunlight in order to grow healthy and to produce abundantly. So obviously greater range of plants is available for sunny gardens versus shady gardens. And then those things that you can grow in the shade, when they are actually grown in the shade, either with limited sunlight or without any sunlight at all, they will take more time to grow and they will take more time to ripen. But if you have a shady garden, don't get discouraged, because there are things that you can grow, things that you can enjoy, and that's basically the point of this video, to show you what I grow in my garden, what I'm able to harvest on a weekly basis, and perhaps you will find some ideas on what you can plant in your own shady container garden. Alright, so this is my small veggie garden space. I grow here some typical shade-tolerant crops, but I'm also doing a couple of experiments this year that I'm gonna show you in a moment. But why don't we start first with this vertical planter. This is my new addition. I bought it a couple of months ago and I'm super happy with it, because it allowed me to optimize this empty vertical space. I have so much more space to grow edibles, and by lifting them off the floor, they can catch a little bit more light versus if they were just standing here on the floor in complete shade. So in this first year here I have lettuce, and I transplanted it into this planter because previously I had it in another container, and initially I had like 6 or 7 plants. I seeded them in February, you guys. So I've been harvesting this lettuce from the same plants for like the past 5 months or so, because instead of cutting the lettuce at the base, I kept pulling individual leaves from all of these plants that I had, and this not only allowed me to have a continuous harvest and pretty much every single day, but it allowed this lettuce to keep producing new fresh leaves. So I was able to harvest lettuce from the same plants for over like 5 months. But it's been really warm recently, so this lettuce is starting to bolt. So it's time to harvest it once and for all, to clean this space a little bit and prepare it to seed new fresh lettuce. So and I have 2 different types of lettuce here. I had lettuce Batavia, which is the one that I'm harvesting right now, and then I have some oak leaf lettuce as well, because basically all types of lettuce and leafy greens do well in the shade. I also had arugula previously, but I already harvested all of it. Okay, I'm just gonna leave it like this and I'm gonna clean it up later. Maybe let's harvest this as well. Now let's jump to the first tier. So in this first tier I have some radish. It's a mix of all kinds of radish. I have some French breakfast, some Malaga I think, and some Bacchus. And this doesn't look very attractive because I went on holidays, and when I came back it was all completely wilted and most of the leaves were like brown and crispy, so I had to cut them back. And one mistake I made, I don't know how I forgot about it, but when I seeded this radish I completely forgot to thin it out. So I have way too much radish than I should have here, but that's okay because I see that some of them managed to grow to a decent size. Right, so let's harvest it, and usually with radish I sow it in intervals every like 2 to 3 weeks so that I can have a continuous harvest. So let's see what we got from this one. So radish does really well in partial shade with only a couple of hours of sunlight. You will have to give it more time to ripen, but it's definitely worth it. And generally, most root crops do really well in partial shade. So if you haven't tried any, highly encourage you to do so. I'm gonna be sowing some pretty soon for autumn harvest, so stay tuned for that. All right, I'm gonna go rinse them and I'll be back. All right, so here they are, a handful of radishes of different kinds and flavors. Next are alpine strawberries, and I think that alpine strawberries have many advantages over a traditional strawberry, because first of all, traditional strawberry, usually after 3-4 years the plant gets tired and you need to replace it with a new plant, versus alpine strawberries, they can go on for years. Like I've had the same plants for like at least 7 years, and then every year they multiply and you can just separate them, divide them and have more plants. Also, they don't require as much sunlight as a traditional strawberry, strawberry in order to produce abundantly and to actually produce tasty and sweet fruit. So if you have a shady garden, I highly recommend trying alpine strawberries. I have several bushes of two kinds. I have red wonder and yellow wonder, so red and yellow alpine strawberry, and I'm harvesting them pretty much on a daily basis, so I may not have a lot today, but that's because I've been harvesting them regularly. So let's see. So just a small handful today because, as I said, I am harvesting them pretty much on a daily basis. So this year I'm also trying a traditional strawberry in my garden. This is a strawberry Toscana, which has a trailing habit and beautiful pink flowers. And I've never tried traditional strawberry in my garden because usually they need at least 5 hours of sunlight in order to produce and for the fruit to actually be sweet and tasty. But I decided to give it a try, placed it strategically on the railings here where they can catch about 4 hours of morning sunlight. And I must say, I'm not disappointed because look at this. These berries are pretty decent size, they are quite tasty, and the plant keeps producing new ones. So definitely gonna be keeping this one as a perennial and see what it does next year because it's pretty small actually, so no wonder it doesn't produce much more than this. Another thing that I'm trying this year is this little cherry tomato with yellow fruit, because usually the darker the fruit, the more sunlight it needs to ripen. So I figured I'm gonna give a try to a yellow cherry tomato. And look at this, you guys, it produced a ton of tomatoes. They do take their sweet time to ripen, obviously because there's not a lot of sunlight, as I said, maybe 4 hours. But I already harvested a small handful of them, and now I'm waiting for this round of tomatoes to ripen. There is quite a bit of them, so if they manage to ripen, that will be really awesome, and I will be probably planting one like that again next year. Okay, moving on, let's harvest some blueberries. And one thing I wanted to say is that my berry harvest would have been greater if I didn't have blackbirds harvesting all of those berries before me. So one day I saw a couple of blackbirds and I was like, oh, that's really cute, I have blackbirds visiting my garden. And then I realized that in fact they were just here to steal all of my berries. And I swear within one day they harvested it all. They harvested all of my alpine strawberries, all of my strawberries, and all of my ripe blueberries. So what I did to protect these plants is I wrapped those smaller plants in the mesh bags, and then I covered those larger plants with a thin grade horticultural fleece, and then I hung CDs to hopefully scare them off. And I must say it worked because I haven't seen them for the past couple of weeks. So let's harvest whatever is left of those blueberries. So I have two blueberry bushes as of right now. I have pink lemonade with beautiful pinkish yellow fruit, and then I have Brigida Blue, which is a classic blueberry. And the thing about blueberries is that first of all they produce fruit on old wood, and then they produce the best on a third-year wood. And my plants are still fairly young, and well, hence why they don't really have a lot of blueberries. But this one is pretty decent. I already harvested some, and as you can see there are a couple of handfuls on the plant still, minus obviously those that birds stole. So yeah, I think next year will be really the year where I can actually enjoy a larger harvest. Alright, so here is what I harvested just from that pink lemonade alone, and that's a pretty decent harvest if you ask me. It's quite a lot of berries to enjoy. So I don't think the Brigida Blue has nearly as much. I harvested some already, and then the birds stole a ton of berries from this one because this one was ripe before the pink lemonade, so I think I will have only a couple of berries here for now. Alright, so time for herbs. With herbs, it's really important to keep them pruned. Even if you don't use a ton of them, it's still a good idea to give them a haircut to prevent them from becoming leggy, to prevent them from starting to flower. So I'm gonna cut them all today, and I'm gonna dry them so that later I can use them as spices. So I have basil. Basil does really well in partial shade. Then chives, excellent for full shade, partial shade. I have some rosemary. This was an experiment, but it grows, I mean, pretty decent. I can't complain. And then I have some mint. Mint does really well in partial shade as well. Mine is a little bit neglected this year because I pushed it into this dark corner and I didn't harvest it regularly, as I said. You know, I don't always practice what I preach, but mine is a little bit leggy and overgrown, so it's a good idea to give it a prune today, harvest whatever I can. I have 3 different types. I have peppermint and I have 2 different flavored mints. I have orange mint and strawberry mint, which are really great for cocktails and for desserts. And then I also have a bay laurel, my bay laurel tree that I train into a standard. So whenever I prune it, I use the cuttings, I dry them, and then I can use them for cooking. Look at those chives. This is massive. And I will keep chives as a perennial. They are pretty winter hardy. So let's harvest a good bunch of them. So I just use this elastic kind of plant wire. I wrap them really tight and then I'm just gonna hang them and leave them outside to dry. Okay, you guys, so here is my basket full of goodies. To be honest, I'm pretty impressed how much I was able to harvest today, because you know, when you harvest regularly, you don't really realize how much your garden produces. So seeing all of this in this basket is pretty impressive, especially given how small the space is. So I'm really happy and really proud of my little shady garden. So I hope that you guys found some ideas on what you can grow in your garden, and most importantly, that it encouraged you to actually try to grow some things, even if your garden doesn't receive a lot of sunlight, because as you can see, you can enjoy a basket full of goodies, homegrown goodies, even from a shady container garden. So thanks so much for tuning in for today's video, and we'll see each other in the next one.